Okay. Hello?
Did you unmute yourself?
I did. I unmuted
Maybe
myself.
some sound issues.
Hover over that when you
Doesn't-
talk, and oh yeah, it's working. I
Yeah.
can see the
Okay, give me a
audio.
second. Maybe it's something on my end. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think that was the one.
Okay. Yeah. For those online who can hear me, we will be starting around 6:30. We're still waiting for one of our speakers.
Somebody would do a thumbs up or something.
Yeah. I don't think they can hear me.
Oh, you don't think they can?
Yeah, because Anton mentioned that he couldn't hear me. It could be my system. Let me see. Can people hear me?
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Test, test. Can people on Zoom hear me? Cool. Thank you. Hello. Oh gosh. We're gonna get started. So everyone's already sitting down, so yeah. Welcome to our March 2026 Chicago Ruby Meetup. As a reminder, we aim to meet every first Wednesday of the month. We want to thank Vibes and the folks of Vibes for letting us use their lovely space and being such an amazing host. With that, I'm going to hand this mic off to Sam to tell us a little bit more about Vibes. You can skip right by the computer.
Hello, my name is Sam. I lead some of our engineering teams at Vibes, data engineering, and then two of our teams that are mostly Ruby Rails engineers, our platform engineering and ProServe. Vibes has two business units, our mobile engagement platform, which is mostly Ruby Rails based, that brands like Polo, Children's Place, they use to well, I'll keep going. Those brands use to build a mobile audience and interact with them. And then we have another business unit, which is routing text messages, so large.
Oh no, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're always looking for new talent. We don't have open Ruby engineer positions right now, but we likely will in the coming months. So feel free to reach out to me or to Will and George, or are both Ruby engineers in Chicago. And we'd love to talk to you.
Thank you, Sam. I'm going to fix this really quick. Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo on my machine. Okay, people don't still see. All right, oops. Next slide. Uh-oh. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, some exciting news. I'm excited to share that Chicago Ruby is proudly supported by GoTo Inc. GoTo Inc. is a UX, UI, and engineering talent as a service provider for Ruby-powered organizations, helping teams scale with top-tier design and engineering expertise. We're incredibly grateful for the support GoTo Inc. has given our community. If you'd like to learn more about what they do, be sure to connect with Anton, who is in attendance today, back there. Next slide. Okay, some quick housekeeping and announcements. First, join us for future events. We will post our events on meetup.com as well as on Slack. Announcement, we have our own channel within the Ruby Central community Slack, hashtag Chicago-Ruby. We also have a channel on Chicago Tech Slack, hashtag Ruby. I've attached QR codes up there so that you can join. But if you have issues, please feel free to reach out to me and I can send you the invite. Next slide. Okay. Oh, okay. Missed a previous event or want to rewatch a talk? We have our 2025 and 2026 event recordings posted on our YouTube channel at Chicago Ruby Meetups. QR right there. Feel free to give our channels and videos a like and subscribe. Next. Okay. Interested in hosting? Chicago Ruby is on the lookout for organizations willing to host our monthly meetings. If interested, reach out to Anton, Dan, Josh, or myself, the Chicago Ruby organizers, and we can give you more info. Interested in speaking? Chicago Ruby is on the lookout. Oh, nope, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me for more information on speaking at Chicago Ruby. If you're interested in speaking but aren't sure what topic to choose, or if there's a subject you'd like to see covered, we put together a list of potential topics that members of the community are eager to learn more about. This QR code will send you to that list. Feel free to add your ideas onto that list on Google spreadsheet For moderation purposes, this spreadsheet is only available for comments only. Hopefully you can see that and my shadow's not blocking. So admins like myself will add ideas from the comments onto that list. Next slide. Oh, okay. If you're interested in Chicago Ruby, either by hosting a different type of event, like a hack night, code and coffee, collab with other groups, or through a sponsorship, we are so down. Reach out to me for more information on sponsorships or hosting events. Okay, some job announcements. These companies have reached out to us to share the word that they are hiring. Prevail.ai has open positions for mid-level and senior full stack developers. Chime has open positions in their Chicago office for a senior level as well as a backend engineer. TC Trade has an open position for a software engineer too. I've attached QR codes right there that will send you to the job listing. Yeah, I'm gonna hold it right here just in case anyone wants to take a picture. Okay. Last one. Okay, join us next month. PayPal will be hosting our April meetup. Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, but it's for real. It's for real. 6 p.m. to 8:30. We have some great speakers lined up. Joel Hawksley will be joining remote, and Tyler Uing right there. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry. We'll be attending in person to speak to our Chicago Ruby crew. You can RSVP for our April meetup on meetup.com. Okay, all right. With that, I will hand this off to our first speaker, Mike Dalton. They can't.
All right, I unmuted. Okay, you can hear me, and I guess What was that? Oh, right, yeah. Am I screen sharing now? No? Is it sharing now? I might need to do some type of system
Oh,
settings.
did you give him permission to share?
No, I think it's more my computer
Oh,
doesn't like.
yeah.
Zoom
Yep.
setting.
Yeah. Hee figured it out. I think you have to.
Awesome. Okay. Can you see it? Okay, cool. All right. Let me, yeah. So my name is Mike Dalton. I'm here to speak about Hotwire Native and how you can build iOS and Android apps with it. If you're not, as Jason pointed out, this is me on social media. So if you may have seen this guy before on social media, probably not this guy. I don't know if there's as many pics out there with my mustache on. And yeah, I'm based in Philadelphia, so not from Chicago, but I'm really happy to be out here speaking with y'all. I think it's a really cool thing you got going on here. And why am I speaking about Hotwire Native? Because I've got a side project I'm working on that uses Hotwire Native. I work at a company called Triumph, and there's a lot of different Triumphs. So I just wanted to kind of explain this first. We're not Triumph, the motorcycle company. You might have heard of that one. We're also not this Triumph weird arcade make money gambling company. We're also not Triumph.com. If you go to Triumph.com, it's some type of German lingerie website. So you won't find us there. You will find us at Triumph.io. This is our homepage. We are in the, I would say just the trucking space, trucking payments, anything to do with trucking after a load is delivered is what we do. And we're hiring. And we've got some coworkers, some of my coworkers here are happy to join. So yeah, if you're looking for a job, we've got a small group of people in Chicago, even though we're remote. Yeah, I've been to Chicago many times, even though this is my first time speaking. Let me see if this works. Oh, wow, that is.
Yes, it's working though.
It just went way forward.
Oh, I don't know why.
Okay. I guess you can't go backwards. All right. That's all right. All right. I visited Chicago many times. I've been here for a couple of different conferences. In 2019, I was here for GoTo. 2024, RubyConf. Was anybody at RubyConf here? All right. Yeah, we've got some people here. I've also done the architecture boat tour 3 times. So I know everything there is to know about the loop by now. The first time I forgot my jacket and it was winter and I spent the whole time inside the cabin. That I had to do it another time and then the third time with visitors. And why was I in Chicago so often? I used to work at a company called Grubhub remotely from 2017 to 2021. You might be wondering, I didn't know Grubhub did Ruby, and you're right. They don't do Ruby. I did a lot of Spring Boot there, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about Hotwire and Hotwire Native, and this is the Hotwire web graphic on the web page. And this is like a pretty. If you go to check this out, it's a pretty cool looking graphic they got there. And if you didn't know, Hotwire stands for HTML over the wire. So what does that mean? That means that you're sending HTML across your application instead of JSON. So, a traditional client-side app, you'd have some type of JSON API, and you'd be building all of the client on the front end. Rails, since we don't like JavaScript in the Rails community, kidding. We use this is the new default framework. Maybe not kidding. Maybe there are some people who don't like JavaScript. So this is Hotwire, and I guess I can point it here. And I like this quote this is from the Hotwire website. Hotwire is an alternative approach to building modern web applications without using much JavaScript by sending HTML instead of JSON over the wire. And I think that does a pretty good job of summing everything up. There are 3 parts to Hotwire: Turbo, Stimulus, and Native. And I'm going to talk like a little bit about Turbo and Stimulus before I jump into Hotwire Native, just because it's sort of foundational. Like Native is sort of just built upon Hotwire. Actually, I'm curious, how many people are using like Hotwire in some form, either like on a side project or at work? I'm kind of curious. Like, okay, a couple. Okay, yeah. So maybe like 10 to 20%. Okay, and I guess it's a lot of other like JavaScript frameworks like React. How many people are using React at work? Okay, a little more. Okay. So the first part is Turbo. Turbo requires JavaScript, but you don't need to write any of your own JavaScript. And that's because client-side behavior is determined by server-side responses. We're going to have a couple examples later, but the first part of Turbo is Turbo Drive. This is, if you remember TurboLinks back in the day, this is sort of like the successor to TurboLinks. It works out of the box. This is kind of like the part of Hotwire that you don't have to do anything. Your app is just going to work. If your Rails 7 app, Rails 8 app is just going to work with Hotwire without really having to do anything else, sort of behind the scenes. But if you need to like do a little bit more with it, you'll turn to Turbo Frames. And I have this like little graphic here on the right-hand side that just kind of gives a little demo. So this is all. There's no JavaScript I've written to do this. This is just kind of gives you like a single page app feel without having to write any JavaScript. And the code for that is pretty simple. You've got a controller over there. And if you take a look, it's pretty much exactly what you would expect for a like a non-interactive application. If this was just a rail, you wouldn't be able to tell if that were like a Hotwire controller or not. So where the Hotwire comes in is with these turbo frame tags. And so what's going on here is you've got this index page and this edit page. And so what happens when you click on that link to edit the name, if you go back here. Oh, it's not going to do the animation. What's happening is you're clicking on the name and it's opening up that text box. So what's happening here is you're clicking on that link in the index page and it's doing all of the work in the edit action. But what's happening is Turbo it's not refreshing the entire page. It's just looking for the turbo frame tag. So when Turbo knows that when you have a link or anything within a turbo frame and you like click on it, it knows to take the request, the full page HTML request, it gets back from the server. And instead of reloading the entire page, it will just swap out the turbo frame part. So that's why if it's maybe a little subtle here, but that's why, geez. Okay, that's why that went forward. That's why when you make an edit to one of these and click update, the top one doesn't refresh. That's kind of like the point of doing this all, is so that the top one doesn't refresh and just the one you want to edit changes. Turbo streams, when you want to do a little bit more than turbo frames allow. So for example, let's say you want to, when you click that checkbox, you want to remove the element here. There's not really a great way to do that with turbo frames, because turbo frames relies on getting back something back from the server that contains the turbo frame. So what will happen if you click that checkbox in there and you don't do something else is you'll get this content missing response. And I should have included it in a slide here. I don't know, that's like if you've done any amount of like Hotwire, that's probably like driven you crazy because it's like kind of annoying. But the content missing is just saying that we expected this turbo frame to appear after this request, but it wasn't there. So we're just going to show content missing. So what do we have to do here is we have to do something a little bit more. So now the controller, it no longer really looks like a normal Rails server-side controller. We have to respond with this like turbo stream action. So instead of responding with HTML, we're actually going to respond with turbo stream. And so what happens here is the server sends down a turbo stream response instead of an HTML response. And that response says to remove this reminder that's on the page.
Somehow related to WebSockets? Is it streaming or is it like one shot?
I don't know. I wouldn't say, I don't believe it's related to WebSockets. I think it's just like WebSockets powers more of like the action cable stuff or like the turbo refreshes.
They're confused by what stream.
Yeah, I think it's called a turbo stream. I don't know why they chose that phrasing, but like that's instead of like a JSON response or an HTML response, it's like a turbo stream MIME type. And yeah, if you ever inspect it in your browser, you'll just see like a turbo stream XML instead of like the normal HTML response. I guess I would call it, yeah, I mean, same, yeah, similar. Yeah. And then stimulus. So stimulus is the second part here. When stimulus is kind of for when you need to do something purely on the client and you don't want to have to interact with the server. So for example, in this graphic, what I'm doing here is as the user is typing, the add button is by default disabled. So and this is probably, you've probably done something with stimulus or like jQuery. It's pretty similar to jQuery. And this is for some, you reach for stimulus when you want to do something on the client that, yeah, without having to go out to the server. And the code for that is pretty simple. Like the top part is JavaScript. That should look kind of similar to what you do with jQuery. And then the bottom is just a normal form. And the key part of stimulus is these data tags, like the data controller, data savable target, data action. That's sort of how you wire up all the relevant parts of a stimulus controller. All right, fifth time was a charm for getting that next slide going. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to get into the mobile part. So in 2026, there are like a million choices. Probably one of the first things you're going to ask is why use Hotwire Native when there's a million other choices? Like you can build it in Android, you can build it in iOS. If you want something cross-platform where you only need one code base, like there's a bunch of different options. So what was that?
Some of them already dead.
Some of them might be dead. Yeah, I haven't used any of them. So yes, it could be that by the time I wrote this talk to now, that some of them are no longer being used. Yeah, so this brings us to Hotwire Native. It's gone by a couple different names. Turbo Native in 2020. If you recall, Strata, there's a lot of fanfare around the Strata release in 2023. And then they kind of just combined them and rebranded it into Hotwire Native a couple years ago. And so when would you use Hotwire Native? I mean, the big reason to use it is you have the need for a web app, an iOS app, and an Android app. And you want to build with Hotwire and Turbo. that's sort of a prerequisite. It relies on Hotwire. So if you just got a Rails app that, what you want to use something else for, it's Hotwire Native is not really going to work. And I would say you're comfortable being maybe an early adopter. It's still, it's still like actively being developed, and there's still some like, bugs that pop up. But if that might appeal to you, and I think it's a good community to get started with, if you're interested in that. So how does it work? I think the best way to describe it is you've got native navigation and animation with an embedded web browser that runs your Rails app. And it doesn't look like a browser, but all of the views inside look exactly the same as they would on a web app. How do you get started? There's no Rails new in Hotwire Native. So you kind of have to like follow a guide online. And the guide, it's pretty simple. Hotwire Native apps are native apps themselves. So if you have a native Hotwire Native app, you'll probably have 3 different code bases, an iOS, Android, and a Rails code base. And you'll go through this wizard, you'll add some code to it, and that's really all the code you need. And one of the cool parts is you can kind of just point it at any Hotwire native enabled Rails app. So this is, you could just create this on your computer, point it at Hotwire Native demo, and a lot of it, if there's not really any native components, it would sort of work. I'm not necessarily recommending you do that, but you could do that. And then the Android, I think one of the things I've learned on my Android journey is there's always a little more steps involved with Android development. And I mean, this looks pretty similar to what the iOS code looked like. But then, if you're jumping into Android apps, you're going to have to write some XML. So that may probably, may bring back some bad memories of a former development life for you all. And actually, there's another option. They're embedded inside of the Hotwire Native Android and Hotwire Native iOS repos. There's a demo app, so you could just copy that app and just change some, just ask Claude Code to change the references from demo to whatever you're doing. And so just to talk a little bit about like the navigation here. So this is what the navigation looks like. This is what you get out of the box without doing anything. It looks and feels like a native app when you navigate from one page to another.
Really, so I can explain what exactly we are seeing here. What is as animations? What do we get from Hotwire here?
Could you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What are you getting here from Hotwire? Like except for animations.
What are you? Well.
If you make like a view previously, what's the difference?
Well, I've got about maybe 20-30 minutes left of my talk, and you will have an answer for you at the end of that. But no, so this is, I will see, but to your point, this is probably what you kind of get out of the box, and then it's a little sort of up to you to make some more improvements, but I'll show you a lot more improvements than this. So this is like the basic navigation. This is an alternative navigation, or a screen replace. So what Hotwire Native will do out of the box for you is, let me play this animation. Some screens, so for example, if you have a form submission and it redirects right back to the page that you were on, Hotwire Native knows not to navigate to a new page. So for example, here, if you're submitting a form, if it redirects right back to this page, it's not going to actually do a page transition. And probably because you're unlikely to want a page transition in this scenario. And then external links. So if most users don't expect, if they're using an app if you're visiting an external website, it'll pop up in the system browser. You don't have to do anything with that. So the next aspect I want to talk about is path configuration. And this is a JSON file that you'll configure, and it allows you to say, sort of for each path, what should it look like the default view, or should it look like a modal? It also allows you to configure whether something should use a Rails view, or maybe you want to switch to a native component for that particular URL. So some examples. This is kind of like, this is what it looks like here. It's JSON. This can either be stored within the app itself or on the server. So I think a lot of developers will store one copy in the app to sort of like quickly have access to to these transitions, but then you can also store it on the server. And one of the nice parts about storing it on the server is then you don't have to submit your app for an app review. So let's say you let's say you want to like change the way a page behaves. You want to change it to like use a modal. You don't have to go through the app review process. You can just change it on the server. And I think that I didn't really discuss that earlier, but I would say that's like one of the big advantages of Hotwire Native over like some of the other approaches is you don't really have to make nearly as many changes to the app. And unfortunately, Apple and Google have made it they don't make it easy to get new, especially Apple. They're very particular with what apps they let on the App Store. So it can be a time-consuming process to go through the review process again. So this is the basic navigation. This is what that looks like. This is what the modal looks like. And yeah, so if we specify, so it's pretty common, like one of the things they show you in the guide is you can have all forms that, are routed to like the new and edit pages. You can use that like regular expression over there so that all of them appear as modals instead. And then this is an example from the guide. But if you want to just use native code. So in this example, the middle page here is a native page. So the very first page is HTML. The middle page is a native screen, and then that links out to another HTML page. So you can do that by just specifying which URLs are handled by native components and which URLs, and then the rest of the URLs are handled by your app. A pretty simple change you can make to your app. You can, if you want to add a title to the navigation bar, you can move this. I'll show you some code here to move this from the sort of in the web view to outside of the web view. And that's pretty simple. You just got to add a page-specific title tag and add an H1 tag, hide the H1 tag in the Rails code base. So if you look right here, Rails Hotwire Native knows to take anything in the title meta tag and put it in your sort of native title view up there. But as you can see, like this doesn't look that great. It looks kind of weird that you have both this like your feeds, in the web view and also in the title. So what you can do then is you can use this little CSS snippet. And I don't know a lot about CSS, so I don't know exactly what this variant and slot means, but what it equates to is it gives you the ability to do something like this, where you just specify Hotwire Native hidden on any element you want, and then it'll be hidden on your Hotwire Native app. A tab bar is probably like one of the kind of the cool slick things you'll do at first. And a tab bar, each separate tab here is a separate web view, and they have separate navigation stacks. So that means you can sort of have a user on one tab, visit a couple pages, switch to another tab, visit a couple pages, and they can bounce back and forth between the tabs without it affecting the other tab's navigation stack. And yeah, this is what that looks like. The implementation for this is pretty simple. We do have to add some iOS code, but the good thing about this is you probably aren't going to change this very often. Just a little more iOS code. And then Android looks pretty similar. And yeah, the dreaded XML monster reappears with Android. I'm not going to go through all of this. I mostly put this there to give you, make sure you understood that you are going to get into some XML if you're jumping into the Android world. And then, yeah, like just a little more code to get that working. And then you probably want to hide the web navigation. So on your mobile view, you might have like a drawer that appears in the top left. So you'll want to use the same component, the same CSS selector we created earlier to hide that. So next I'm going to just like talk about a little more about like a more advanced, like how you tie some of these pieces together. So on my app that I've been working on, I've got this sort of like dialog box that appears on, this is on the web. And I think this looks pretty good on the web, but if you look at it in iOS, there you go. If you look at it in iOS, it sort of looks out of place. Like this just doesn't look and feel like how you'd expect an iOS app to work. You'd probably expect it to maybe look a little more like this, like slide out with like a native component. And so here's what the web code looks like before you do anything to make it Hotwire native. We're making this, the dialog box, a turbo stream request. Then we're responding with adding in a dialog window to the page that's already open. So that works. The code for that is pretty simple for the web. And then if you want to get it working for native, you've got to do like a couple, you've got to make a couple changes. So we're not going to make it a turbo stream request. Instead, we're just going to respond with normal HTML. And then we're going to remember the path configuration I was talking about earlier. We're going to update that. And that is going to say, when we encounter the calendar path, we're going to use a modal instead of the default view. So if you didn't add the path configuration, it would work, but it would just append a new page to the stack. And it would maybe not look as natural as you'd expect like a calendar switcher to look like. Bridge components are kind of like the next thing you might reach for. They're a little more complex. They involve using stimulus and then adding an iOS and an Android component. But they can give you some pretty cool features. So a lot of pages will have like a single call to action. So for example, on this page, you've got like an add feed button. This is like an RSS reader. And you might want, it's pretty common like on mobile apps to have it in the top right-hand corner. And so you could add a bridge component to get it to move there. And the code for that involves, like adding a stimulus controller. Then you need to update the link to use the stimulus controller and then add an iOS and Android component. So this is what the stimulus controller looks like. What we're doing here is that there's kind of a lot here. The core functionality is this send call down here and the element.click. So what this is doing is send will send a message to the native component. And it includes some data like the title and a callback. And the native component can choose what to do with that callback. So then we'll update the add feed button to just have these stimulus controller attributes. And then this is what the code looks like on iOS. So there's a lot going on here, but if we start at the on receive, so this is what gets called when connect is called. And then this add button gets called. So what this is doing is it's attaching sort of like at runtime, it's attaching this UI action iOS component to the page and putting it in the top right-hand corner. And then when the UI action, when that button gets clicked, it's in turn clicking the actual HTML element. And then we just gotta register this component. And this is what the Android code looks like. It's pretty similar to the other code, just like handling the connect event and responding to it. And then it's in action. So you can see it, you're clicking it up here. We've removed the add feed button from the web view, and now we've moved it to the top right hand corner to have like a native button. And there's like a lot more of these you can add. So you could add like a menu. Like this is pretty popular in apps to have like a little slide out from the top right that has a bunch of different options on it. You can add like toast messages. So instead of maybe your Rails Flash messages don't really have the right look and feel for a native app, you can request permissions. This is something you got to do a little bit more often on native apps compared to web apps. And so you can trigger those with bridge components. And actually, like, you don't even need to write any of that, like, because a lot of people, this guy, I don't know if anybody knows Joe, but he's written a lot about Hotwire Native, And he has a library that pretty much has like all of these things that I just mentioned in there. So you don't really have to write any of that if you don't want to. You can just use the library, which is what I would recommend, because you'll probably be spending enough time writing other features on your app. But yeah, so sometimes all of that is sort of like not enough, and you need something like native. So this is it on this calendar vision app I have. I've got a feature to add an event to a calendar. And so what happens here is when the user clicks the add to calendar button, instead it's opening a native. So this slide out here is the native add to calendar feature. It's nothing on the web view. But there's not really an elegant way to do that from that trigger from the Rails side. So you have to write a little bit of native code for that. And so what that looks like, we've got this this feature here where you can decide. I showed it a little bit in the. Do I have it here? Okay, I don't. Yeah, I should have led with this part. But back to the path configuration. This is one of the things you can do here is you can say for this URL, if the native app encounters the URL pattern calendar event / a number / add to calendar, use this add to calendar native component. And so that's what's coming in here is when we encounter that, we're going to execute this native code. And what that's going to do here is that's going to internally trigger the add to calendar component, which that is this code right here. And I would say a fun fact is this is probably like the first time when I was working on this 6 months ago, this is probably the first time I was really impressed with like Claude Code and other coding agents, because I didn't like really know how I would write any of this stuff, but it did a pretty good job, or I think it did a good job. I don't actually know I don't really know for sure what the right way to write a native app is, but it has written a lot of my native code. And so, yeah, so this is all, iOS code to spawn that little modal I showed. And then, this is the code to dismiss that. And then the path configuration I showed earlier. And then this is all you have to do in your Rails app. And it's kind of important to mention that all of the iOS code, you just have to write that once, get that reviewed, and then you can add this button anywhere you want within your Rails app, redeploy your Rails app, and you've gotten this feature now, like at any time, without having to like go through the review process. I mentioned that a couple of times because I think as a web developer, I'm just so used to, I can just click deploy anytime I want. Like any change I want can immediately be live for users. But on the mobile side, they don't have that luxury. They have to wait until the Apple reviewers and the Google reviewers decide to get their app out there. The Android code, it looks pretty similar, except Android just does it a little bit differently. They don't allow you to, or at least I couldn't find a way to launch a sort of add to calendar component within the app itself. So they want you to redirect the user outside of the app into their calendar app. So that's what's going on here. And for that, I use something called a route decision handler, which is something built into Hotwire Native. These are like little classes you can create. By default, there's 3 that are created for you. They take every URL that's an internal URL and they route it to the web view. They take every HTTP external URL and they route it to the system browser. And then they take all of the non-HTTP external URLs, if you preface it with mail : and or tell : it'll do an action, and it'll respect that and do the proper thing in the native app. And so for this, I've just had to write my own. I couldn't figure out another way to do it. So this decision handler is designed to match any on Android, any URL that matches that pattern will get called by this handler. And then there's a lot of code here, but all what this code equates to is open. The Android has this concept called an intent, which I believe is its way to represent interacting with something else outside of your app. And so you can pass it all this data and it will tell the Android operating system to open up the external calendar. And then you just have to configure that. So I think probably the big thing to take away from this portion is We have two like totally different native implementations on iOS and Android. They need totally different ways of going about doing it. But it's the exact same Rails code. Your Rails code is exactly the same. And then, yeah, so just a brief review of like what we've talked about. Native navigation and animation, that's what you get out of the box. Path configuration, when you want to change the navigation behavior, and that's it, then you can reach for path configuration. The native tab bar, it's an easy native component to add. And I think like one of the things I've seen people talk about online is if you just try to submit a basic Hotwire native app to the App Store, they'll reject it for not having enough native features in it. This is like the easy native feature to add if you want to get it on the App Store, is the tab bar. Bridge components, that's what you kind of reach for when you just need a little bit of native functionality. And then native components, when bridge components are, that's like sort of the final straw you need to sort of dip fully into native components. And yeah, resources, if you're curious about Hotwire Native, there is a lot of good content out there. There's like a pretty like short handbook written by 37 Signals. There's a book by, I mentioned Joe earlier, a Pragmatic Programmer's book. I've read that. It's a really solid book, a really solid introduction. And then there's a course, learn how, that covers like all of Hotwire, not just Hotwire Native. And then yeah, if you want to see, this is the app I've been working on. If you want to see a Hotwire Native app in person, you can go to your, I'll have a QR code at the end. You can go to your device's app store and download it. And if you saw that app and you don't like what you're seeing, you can find many other Hotwire Native apps. There's a like a sort of community project, this Hotwire Native direct. I think it's just hotwirenative.directory. And people who build Hotwire Native apps can submit theirs to there. And it just has like a collection of like 100 or so, if you're curious what's out there. And yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Good question. So the benefit of Hotwire Native is we can keep the same set of views. So we can basically add something to web pages. We already have the interface.
Yeah, I would say that's
basically.
What was that?
So basically enhance it.
Yeah, I think I would say that's probably a pretty common pattern to just get started with all of your web views and then gradually over time sort of convert the pages that need the most interactivity with native pages. So yeah, I would say that's the big advantage to Hotwire Native is you want to build a Rails app and you just want to get a native app going as quickly as possible.
More questions. What does the approach for offline?
Yeah,
everything yourself, like native?
I think so. I think there is like I think Basecamp does have off. I actually haven't really used their apps a lot, but I believe that because their apps are Hotwire Native. The Basecamp app and Hey, I believe both use Hotwire Native. And I think there's some like, I mean, I'm sure there must be offline capabilities there. So I think they have built into their apps offline capabilities. And I think it's maybe just somewhere on the roadmap to get there, but there's not really like built into the framework now. I don't think there's a lot of offline built-in stuff.
Do you feel comfortable to talk about this? Like, is it possible to maybe at least have some kind of HTML page inside, something? What should we do in case we are offline? Just display error message and nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are hooks. I think the app might provide like hooks, like you can customize the web. You can hook into the error view. Like if you get an error within an app, within a native app, you can have a custom error page. So I guess that's what it would do right now. I would say like if you are dependent on offline features right now, yeah, probably Hotwire Native is not your choice. Yeah. Well, maybe just let somebody. Yeah, but we'll get back to you. Yeah.
Is there a kind of a local storage on the device and how to interact with the
Yeah, so there is local storage. So you can use like, yeah, you can dip into whatever you want with the bridge component or the native component. There, like the app, like every request hits the app and gives you an opportunity to hook into something. So you can use local storage if you want. I would say there's not really the framework. Hotwire Native doesn't really provide an easy way to do that. But since it's a native app, you can write any native code you want to interact with local storage. And I think there might have been a second question.
interaction with gallery or file store?
Yeah, so that kind of just works. So if you just, because in my app you've got like a upload image button, and so if you just the totally normal input type equals file, does all that for you. Like,
What about the push notification?
yeah, so the push notifications, they are supported, and I think I got my app has it. They're not exactly supported in Hotwire Native themselves. Like a lot of people use, there's like a noticed gem, I think is a popular one. And I think there might be another, I think maybe 37 Signals created one called like Action Push or something. So their push notifications are totally supported, and you can drive them entirely from the server. So once you sort of you do have to do some initial work within your app to get push notifications supported. But once you do that, you can drive any push notifications from the server. Yeah. Any other questions? I know you got one. Did anybody else have one? Yeah. Did you have one?
You can go first. I'm still thinking about it.
Okay, good.
So since it's still a web view, we still got access to JavaScript APIs, like
Yeah.
storage in JavaScript.
Yes.
Everything web is still supported.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much everything on the web. I don't know. The one probably big question mark is I don't know how. So cookies still work. So that's actually an important point that I didn't really touch on. Is authentication. You can drive that pretty much entirely from just the cookies that you use within your Rails app. You could use a separate authentication component, but all of your session storage and cookies work pretty much as expected as they would on the web. So like all the API, like any API that Safari supports or any API that Chrome supports, I think Chrome, it's Chrome on the Android side. Any API that they support in JavaScript there is available to you in your native app.
The publish application, feels like Android reads like native application, look like web-like application, something like that in Android. When you have some page, link, browser, it's basically a native application.
Well, there was.
Because it's embedded inside native application.
Yeah, I mean, to the user, like it looks like a normal app. Like you download it from the Play Store. I'd say like probably maybe if you have just a traditional web app, maybe some of the look and feel of a web app doesn't really look like a native app. So you might have some issues there. But to the user's perspective, it's just a normal native app that they just access the normal way. It's not like a progressive web app where these apps are all like served from the stores themselves. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just so I guess the analogous to Hotwire would be that and Hotwire Native and the whole ecosystem is that this is kind of a I guess cross-platform like HTMX type of system going on, right? Where I guess even in the mobile view, it's also doing I guess to understand it better, in the mobile view, is it also sending elements down to be rendered dynamically to the client? And if it's native, is it sending some type of, is it like a format in which these, like some serialization is coming down to the client and then that's being rendered in a native manner? Or is it sending HTML and then rendering HTML in some sort? Like what in the mobile
it's
sense, what is it exactly doing?
It's the latter. It like within the view itself, by default, everything is it's just a web app.
Okay.
It's totally just a website.
Okay, gotcha.
The navigate out of the box, like the navigation, like the animations, those are all native. Like that's not like an imitation of that's not like CSS or anything. Though the navigations themselves, those are like native transitions. And then a lot of the features you add on, like the tab bar, that is a native component. That is not HTML. But yeah, out of the box, pretty much everything is just a normal Rails app.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
What do you have to respond to specifically Hotwire Trooper or something like that? Have you seen what's inside of the wire? It's like HTML plus something.
I mean, so depending on the request, like some of your Hotwire requests will just be normal HTML. But then there is the other response type, the turbo streams that I talked about. So if you inspect a turbo stream request, That doesn't even look like HTML. I would just call it XML with a turbo stream element. It's kind of like, I think it's just a type that 37 signals created. I don't think it's like anything like a standard or anything. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I'm gonna take 10-minute break. So people can use the bathroom, grab more food, and Jason can get set up. Be back at 7:32.
Just want to let you know, I went on the website, the Triumph website.
So.
Oh,
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, you were. So it's funny.
Allow.
So I'm thinking that's the here for the Super Bowl.
Wait, is it showing? Yes, okay. I can see myself on the screen, and on the screen, I can see this screen where I can see myself. There's.
And then. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yes. Different levels of scale. And then this is yours. You just have to hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on mute.
You have to hold it down.
Hit the fucking
I
what?
know,
Jesus.
yeah.
Okay. Hello. Oh, I have to hold it down.
Down for like a second or two,
Okay.
and then I'll.
Test. Oh,
Yeah.
hey.
Yes.
Good evening.
In like 3-4 minutes.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Sounds good.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember.
Maybe. No. Well, the dude we went with, so, yeah. I think, well, okay, so political view, if you get the job, it's not so. Yeah, he still works, like he's the runner of code, he also runs the largest code of all. The largest code of so. Yeah, you can't lose this opportunity, this is well, you know, that the SF money comes and hits, you know, that venture capital, you know? Yeah, oh, yeah. So, make 6 figures, 86 figures of rent, you know, it's, you know, average deal, you know?
Quindi gli altri posti non credo che When you got like Rubik's. I'll give them share. Are you a part of the Oh, but yeah. You know, but I guess it's more like consistent bidirectional. We have a tiny amount of the only spot that you have. Some of the 37 ones said they were an interesting house, you know, they got some good. Yeah, it was like a little meetup about that was my first one. Yeah, I mean, so oh, no. I mean, they do. I can see shows, but yeah, they try to be kind of in the end. Little thing. I had like zero. Birds. Explain it like just implementing like a
like a fake Ruby with signs of yes, it generates a user, stores it up here in the fine, and then it keeps track of the guess. So I had to do that just to. That should be not. I like the vibe for got to play a lot. Yeah, this is a great time. Doesn't use guys, it doesn't do everything. So it doesn't do like so like it's fine. Yeah, it's definitely not as featureful. I think I've been like bloggers to celebrate Rails. When I first, I like you know, it's that was great, but it's really, but it was really time to be better. But now you can kind of have such a I could generate so much so it's really more. Problems that I guess, but it's still
Hey, what, you got the go ahead? You got the go ahead? Girl, you should do both.
Started because I haven't backed
Nah, back here. You always got your back here. You always.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like, we might have to hit the bottom. All right. Oops. Hello. Hello. Oh, I might have broken it. I break things. I'm sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. We're gonna get started. So, everyone get settled and introducing the next speaker, Jason.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Is this on the internet? Good evening, people of the internet. Thank you for watching this talk. I'm Jason Swett. I'll get my slides going for you. I don't know, is there a special way that I have to do this? Is this good, Anton?
Share your screen to the Zoom.
Share my screen to the Zoom.
Share your
Oh,
screen
yeah.
to the Zoom.
Okay, share. No, not that kind of. Is it this kind of sharing? I'm a boomer. I apologize. Share. Am I doing it right? I don't want this thing on there though.
Anton's verified, but I think you did it right.
And I don't have a cursor. Okay, minimize. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. So this talk is entitled How I Built My Own Continuous Integration Platform on Rails, or How to Complete Hard Projects. So it's kind of a dual purpose talk. It's part, here's how I did this thing, and part, here's in general how you can do hard things. A little bit about me. I host a podcast called Code with Jason. Some of us in this room have been guests on that podcast. I think just Tyler. But you can hear Tyler on a recent episode talking about ductwork. I'm a co-chair of RubyConf 2026, and Michelle is also involved in organizing RubyConf 2026. And our CFP is currently open. It'll be open till like March 15th. And if anybody thinks they might be interested in submitting a talk, for example, people who gave a talk here tonight, and you have any questions about the CFP or anything like that, I would love to talk about that and help you put together a proposal that has a high likelihood of getting accepted. Love to talk about that. I myself have organized a conference called Sin City Ruby in the past, and some of us here in this room have been to Sin City Ruby, like Mike and Steven at least. And I'm organizing another one that I haven't told any of you guys about this yet, I don't think. It's called Renaissance Code, is the name of the conference. Renaissance Code 2026. It's taking place in Petoskey, Michigan. Anybody been to Petoskey? Yeah. It's a wonderful place. Isn't it, Dan? Yeah, magical. Magical, I would even say. October in Petoskey, and Dave Thomas will be there. You guys know Dave Thomas, author of The Pragmatic Programmer. He will be speaking, as will I. So if you think you might like to come hang out with me and Dave Thomas in beautiful Petoskey, Michigan in October, let's talk about that after too. I'm an international speaker. It's pretty fucking cool. I've spoken in a whole bunch of places like India, France, Bulgaria, Nigeria, the Netherlands, and counting. I wrote a book called Professional Rails Testing. I brought a bunch of copies with me here to Chicago to give away and left them in my hotel. So sorry about that. I also write a newsletter. It's a not an email newsletter, although I have that too. I write a snail mail newsletter called Nonsense Monthly. It's an actual letter that comes in the mail, and it's surely one of the world's few snail mail programming newsletters. And you can get that. By the way, anybody here receive Nonsense Monthly every month? Yeah, Stephen is the only one. Okay. It's a delight, isn't it, Stephen? An absolute delight. You can start getting that by going to nonsensemonthly.com. I have a job. I work as a senior tech lead at Cisco. I created a product called Saturn CI, which you'll hear a lot more about this evening. And a little bit about me personally, I'm interested in languages, culture, and food and cooking, as well as various other things. Um, if you speak a language other than English, I would love to speak with you about your language, in your language, possibly, after this talk, if we all go hang out somewhere. Um, if I already speak some of your language, we can speak it. And if I don't, I would love to learn a word or two. Okay. Is this trouble that Mike was having about not getting to the next slide? Interesting. I thought it was this clicker thing, but it's just even on your own computer. Interesting. Fuck it, we don't need slides. Okay. So I built my own CI platform on Rails, continuous integration, CI. Is anybody not familiar? It's okay if you're not. Is anybody not familiar with the concept of continuous integration and a CI platform and that kind of thing? Okay, nobody's raising their hand. So I'll assume that everybody here is familiar. I wanted to check. Um, I wanted to build my own. And why did I want to build my own? The incumbents include products like Circle CI, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, TeamCity, GitLab pipelines. And ladies and gentlemen, they are all shit. Like truly, I have some slides backing up my assertion, but I can't get to them. But that's okay. Because here's the thing, and I think maybe you can speak to this. Oh, Stephen, you have a. Now get out of the full screen mode and scroll down. Oh, look what happened. Holy shit. If I click, it advances. I was pressing the right arrow key. Okay. I'm new to this whole computer thing. Okay, so check it out. This is what Circle CI looks like. Fucking garbage. Just absolute garbage. Look at it. There's just stuff all over the place in random places. What are we even looking at? It's awful. It makes me want to puke. But really, like, what are we looking at? There's very little organization to the page. Things aren't aligned. They're just like smattered in random places. Like if I want to see if one of these tests had failed and I wanted to see what went wrong, it's just a mess. I've used Circle CI since like 2013, and it never stopped being confusing to me in over a decade of using it. Here's what my product looks like, Saturn CI, and I'd like to think it's a lot easier because it's inspired by like an email client layout. So over on the left, you have your test suite runs, and you can just click on them and it defaults. Okay, so this one we clicked on right here, you can see that it failed. It defaults to showing you the first failure with Circle CI and GitHub Actions and all that. You have to dig and scroll to see what's wrong, but Saturn CI just assumes that the failure is the first thing you'd want to see because obviously it is. And Tyler, I think you had first-hand experience seeing the difference, and it makes me happy because multiple people have said that. They've been like, yeah, with Saturn CI, you see the failure as like the first thing. It just shows you because showing you what went wrong is like the one thing that it should do. So that's why I created it. I want to point out another shortcoming of some of these products. And GitHub Actions has a similar weakness to Circle CI, where the logs constitute this like tiny proportion of the page. And it's like, how am I supposed to like read any? This is like the main thing I'm interested in, and yet there's all this other crap, and this is just this tiny part. Like, that's really dumb. With Saturn CI, if you're interested in looking at the logs, look at how spacious it is, because I think if it's the main thing you're going to be interested in, let's make it be the main thing on the page. This is to represent the nice spacious feel of this page. Okay, and by the way, this was an early slide, but I missed it. If anybody has questions about anything as we go, feel free to just interrupt and ask. Yeah, did you have a question? How do I feel about Ruby Chef? I've never heard of it. What is it? It's sorry, say it again. Infrastructure as a service slash CI platform in Ruby. Okay, I'll have to look at that. I've never heard of it before now.
Can I also?
Yeah, please do.
CI looks to be like a job executor or runner.
Every CI looks to you like
A job executor or a runner.
a job executor or a runner.
Just saying that it's possible to generalize already.
And your point is?
Is that a question? No, just a strike. Ideas to my head.
Fair enough. Okay, here's the approach I took. So I first had this idea in maybe like 2017 or 18 or something like that. But I kept being like, I hate Circle CI. I want to build my own thing. But like, no. That's dumb. That's crazy. It's like too hard. And like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I even had this idea like before GitHub Actions came out, and then GitHub Actions came out, and I'm like, I really shouldn't do this. Like anything I could do, they could just like duplicate it with all their resources. Like, no, terrible idea. And then I don't know, what year did GitHub Actions come out? It was like 2018 or something like that. The years slowly went by, and GitHub Actions kept not getting any better. It just stayed the same. You went like this. It just stayed the same. And finally I was like, okay, maybe they're not actually gonna make anything better. And I realized, I was naive back then. This was many years ago, 2018, that was like 8 years ago. And I learned a little bit more about how the world works. Like it's a big company, they have their priorities. They're not gonna be like, oh, Jason did this thing, let's like change all of our priorities and copy what Jason did. Like, no, that's not how things work. I also observed something else. You guys know that product Tuple? It's the screen sharing thing. And Ben Orenstein has a podcast called The Art of Product. Ben Orenstein was guest number one on my podcast, by the way. And he said like there was that Slack screen sharing program. Screen Hero, yeah. Yeah, it was a separate product, and then Slack bought it and like killed it. And Ben said, to my memory, he said like, I kept waiting for Slack to like bring it back, or for somebody to like come in and build a replacement, but they kept not doing it. And so finally he's like, okay, no, apparently nobody's gonna do this, so I'll do it. And then they did it and it worked. Yeah. Have I thought about a collaboration with Lex Friedman? That's a fascinating idea that I'd like to hear more about. I don't have any reason to believe Lex Friedman would give me the time of day, but I'm open to anything. Oh, is this because of the tie and stuff? Anyway, where was it? You totally you derailed me. Yeah, GitHub Actions. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. One day I was just like, I got so pissed off by these tools that I'm just like, screw it. I don't care if this ever becomes a successful product or if it works or anything. I just am so mad at these existing products. They're so stupid. I'm just going to build my own thing just to like get it out of my system. This was also around the time that AI was starting to get pretty good. This was like the summer of 2023. So I think maybe at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, we were at like Chat GPT 3.5, and then 4 was just around the corner. 4 came out in like November of 2023, if that sequence sounds about right. So 3 to 4 was a big jump. 3 was like barely useful. 4 was like pretty good. That's when, for me at least, it went from like maybe this is kind of useful sometimes to like, okay, this is like gonna be a thing that basically changes everything. So I started before that though. Um, and I knew that this was a big, ambitious project that had a high risk of failure. So a big question that I want to address in this talk is how do you approach those hard projects that have a high risk of failure? What do you do to mitigate the chances of failure and maximize your chances of success? I meant to do this at the beginning. Can somebody set a timer for me for like, let's say 15 minutes? Thank you. And if the 15-minute timer goes off and I'm still talking, just start throwing cans and bottles at me. Um, um, so how can you approach an ambitious project and minimize the chances of failure? Before I say anything, I want to hear you guys' ideas. Like, what would you do to help make sure that it doesn't fail? Did I see your hand? You have to ask the users what they want. That's good. Yeah. Okay, what else? Did you have something? Oh, you were looking pensive. Yeah,
Be totally obsessed with the problem.
you're totally obsessed with the problem. Okay. Indeed. Yeah, some people kind of lose steam. You have to somehow maintain your enthusiasm and energy and stuff like that. That's definitely true. Corey. Do the part you don't know how to do. That is excellent. I have 3 things on my like list, and that is absolutely one of them. Anything else? Yeah. Plan to iterate. Yes, if I understand what you're saying, that is another one of my 3 things on my list. It's at least very similar. Okay, here's my 3 things. And I'll rattle these off and then explain what I mean by each one. Start the feedback loop ASAP, minimize work in progress, and do the most riskiest work. The riskiest work. You can either say most risky or you can say riskiest, but most riskiest isn't the thing to say. Okay, start the feedback loop ASAP. What do you guys think I mean by that?
People yell at you real quick.
Have people yell at you real quick. Okay, so that's kind of a facetious way to put it, but start getting feedback from real people as early as you can. Yeah. And Corey, I have a sense that that this means something to you. Get the feedback loop started ASAP. What does that mean to you?
I was joking and said set up CI.
Set up CI. Okay, but to take that answer in like a non-joking way, yeah, set up your right from the very beginning, have a test suite, even if it's like empty. You just have one single test that asserts something not very meaningful, like I don't know, visit the login page and assert that you can log in or something like that, something trivial, even if it's a test suite of just one test suite of just one test. Um, um, Production environment, have your production environment set up from day one, so that you can theoretically, you have your production environment, somebody can log in on your product. They call it a walking skeleton. If you've read that book, Growing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Tests, they have that idea of a walking skeleton where your application doesn't really do anything meaningful yet, but there's something up there. And so from that point on, it's just iteration. You're not doing this big project of setting up production any more times after that first time. You already have all that. And then from there, it's just small iterations going straight to production. So I definitely did that. Right from the beginning, I got a production environment set up. Minimizing work in progress. Let's talk about that. Corey, I hope you don't mind if I call on you for several of these things. Does that mean something to you?
Bite out very small.
Yeah, bite out very, very small chunks. There's a saying that I say to myself, which is never underestimate your ability to screw things up. Because even the smallest things, there's still kind of a lot of room to make a mistake. And human beings are very error prone. Even like super geniuses like me, like I still like I've made like at least 5 mistakes in my life. um um like for example, when I said do the most riskiest work first. Okay, but okay, I want to say something else important about minimizing work in progress. Um, I'll use an analogy about podcasting because that's something that I do. If I have a podcast episode that is like 95% processed and ready to go, but it's not 100% done, there's still like some little tweak that needs to be made, I can't publish it. It might as well be 0% done. And so I've paid the cost of recording it and doing the post-recording processing and doing the summary and all that stuff. I've paid that entire price, but I'm not yet getting any benefit at all. It is work in progress. And if you, okay, so podcast episode is one thing. It's bad enough to have like 10 podcast episodes in the queue that you haven't published yet, which I do right now, and it's terrible. Um, uh, um, sorry, that's just like very painful. It's a situation I get myself into a lot, and it's really dumb. Um, but like, okay, if you work on like a big chunk of work where there's a lot of stuff that has to be done before the thing can go out into production, that's a pretty big risk. There's a large cost that you're paying before you get to have any benefit from it. So it's a good idea to minimize your work in progress by biting off small chunks and getting each chunk finished and in production, finished and in production, finished and in production. Sometimes the work of slicing that stuff up so that you can work on it in small pieces, that actually costs extra. There's like an overhead cost to breaking it down into small parts. It takes a bit more thought and work and stuff like that. But on balance, I think it's a cost saver because you don't end up with that risky situation where you've paid a high cost for something you're not getting any benefit out of yet and might never get any benefit out of because priorities might change, or you might figure out that you took the wrong approach and you need to completely redo it or something like that. There's a million ways it can go wrong. So minimize work in progress. Do the riskiest work first, and that's what Corey mentioned at the beginning. With a risky project, if you have, let's say you have 4 big things that you think are going to be part of it, and 3 of them are straightforward and 1 of them is not. When the clock is ticking and it's the 11th hour and the pressure is high and you're stressed and people are breathing down your neck, what do you want to be working on? I would much rather be working on the straightforward grunt work than the more mysterious stuff. The mysterious stuff might be easier. It might be a smaller volume of work, but it's more mysterious. You know, it requires some figuring out, and it could be, you might not know. Maybe it's easy, maybe it's hard. You just don't know. That's not the stuff that I want to be working on at the 11th hour under pressure. I want to be working on that stuff at the beginning when the pressure is relatively low. Okay, so with that stuff in mind, here's what I went for first. I said, let me just get a plain Ruby app running its test suite on a VM somehow. I didn't really know how I would do that. I figured I'd probably use Docker somehow, but that was about as far as my imagination went with that. Does anybody have any idea, like, if you had to do such a thing, like how you might go about it? Sorry? Sorry, just use some kind of, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. This was before like AI was really mature enough to just do it for me. So I was like, okay, I know how to Dockerize a Ruby program. So let me just make like the simplest possible Ruby program, put it in a Docker container, and then just like manually upload it to a VM, and then like manually kick off the test suite, like SSH into the VM and just literally run like RSpec. And that worked. There were some snags and stuff like that, of course, but that pretty much worked. And the significant thing was that I didn't have to install Ruby on the VM. I didn't have to install any of my gems on my VM. You know, Docker, I know not everybody's super familiar with all the details of Docker, but like basically it's a way of packaging up an environment's dependencies. So because I could package up all of my project's dependencies in a Docker environment, I could just drop it into any VM and it could run. And that was the basic idea. And that's still how it works. Because if I can do that with my project, then I can take any arbitrary Ruby project theoretically and just drop it in since it's Dockerized and be able to run the tests. So that was one of my first experiments. And that was relatively easy. So what I did next was I'm like, okay, I know how to do that. Now let me get a trivial Rails app. And that's a bit of a jump. Can anybody think of why that would be a kind of a jump from just a Ruby app to a Rails app? Okay, if you're doing web requests. But what do you need for a Rails environment? You got a bundle. Can have that for a Ruby project too. Front end. You might be like pre-compiling assets and stuff like that. Well, think about persistence. Yeah, you're going to have a database server. Yeah, some kind of database server. I don't know what kind of database. I don't know what database management system you're going to have. Maybe you're going to have SQLite, maybe Postgres, maybe MySQL. I don't know. So that's like an additional mystery that I have to solve. You might have Elasticsearch or Redis. You could have any service. I don't know what services you might have. So this is kind of a big jump. So I was really glad that I kind of proved the concept with just a Ruby app first. So that I can say, it's kind of like when you're rock climbing and you like stick the thing in the rocks. So if you fall, you only fall a little ways. You don't know what I'm talking about, Michelle? To be fair, I also don't know what I'm talking about, but like rock climbers do that thing, right? Where they stick something in the rock. So if they, sorry, it's called a cam or a chuck or chalk. Chalk, CHOCK. Okay. But anyway, then you only fall a ways instead of falling to your death. so with the Ruby thing, it was like setting a chalk cam, so that it was like, okay, I'm good up to here already. Now I only have to figure out, I have to travel less distance to get to here. Anyway, long story short, I figured out that I could use Docker Compose to package up any arbitrary Rails environment. Because with Docker Compose, you can say, all right, I have my custom Rails app, I have Postgres this version, I have Redis this version, blah blah blah. You put that in the Docker Compose config, and you can start it up, and it'll both install and start up those services for you. So again, I can just have a blank VM, and with the Docker Compose config, it'll install and start up all those services for you. So well on our way. Okay. I already talked about getting the production environment set up right from the beginning, but like those Docker experiments were like just scratch experiments, that like throwaway things. Um, um, then I got my real production environment set up. And the next thing was to connect those Dockerized test suite experiments that I did to the production environment. Is this a notification about time? Oh, 1 minute left. Okay. Okay. Luckily, I'm pretty close to the end, I think. The next thing was, okay, I have my Rails production environment, and this was just what I described before. It was just a blank Rails app. You could like log in with GitHub, and that was it. Like that was literally all you could do. So then it's like, okay, how do we make it so you can have your test suite run and the app actually like knows something about it? And I'm like, all right, well, what if I just have like a shell script, and the shell script makes calls to my web server, and it's just like, hey, I started, hey, I finished, and like that's it for starters. Just a shell script, nothing more complicated than that. And that worked because, I planned it so that there's not much to go wrong. It's just a small step. I didn't bite off very much. I didn't try to have some sophisticated agent with retry logic built in and stuff like that. It was just a really simple shell script, only trying to send a couple of rudimentary events back to the server. And that worked. And then I just went bit by bit, like next, how do I stream the logs to the server? That was a big mystery, so I wanted to get that one out of the way first. It's not, streaming sounds like a fancy concept, but it wasn't as hard as it might sound. It was just a lot of details. And that's the way I approached the entire rest of the project, was I just took it tiny, tiny bits at a time, deploying to production the whole time, keeping the feedback loop tight. And again, these are the takeaways that I want to impart to you if you find yourself working on a risky project, a big, ambitious project with a tight deadline, and really like what other kind of project is there? Like all projects are under time pressure, all projects have risks. So like I'm always thinking about this. How can I start the feedback loop as early as possible, meaning getting things all the way to production? Minimizing the work in progress, because again, you don't want to pay a price for something that you're not getting any benefit out of yet, or rather you want to minimize that price that you paid before you start getting benefits out of it. And then, hey, I worded it correctly this time. Apparently I just typed it twice instead of copy pasting. Do the riskiest work first, because when it comes down to the wire and the pressure is at its highest, that's not when you want to be figuring out the mysteries. That's you want to be doing that stuff at the beginning. Okay, if you're interested in trying out my product, it only works for Rails. It only works for RSpec. These, limiting the scope, mitigating the risk, I can do mini tests later. I can do non-Rails stuff later. I'm starting narrow. So if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to saturnci.com and see it there. Apparently that's my last slide. So thank you very much for listening to my talk. If you have any other questions, I would love to talk after.